Greetings, oh you princes of Maine, you kings of New England. Jack Moves here with a third episode of the Jack Chats podcast. Be sure to subscribe via YouTube, iTunes, or Google Play if you haven't yet. I spoke with my good friend Lucas Gadke not long ago. Lucas is a talented young bass player and musician who has played in a wide variety of groups, from folk music to a weekly gig he does at Grossman's Tavern, playing with the swing band The Happy Pals, to arguably where the bulk of his knowledge resides, in heavy bands like Blood Ceremony and his own project, Volar. Lucas has a larger-than-life personality, is kind-hearted, has a boundless sense of humor, and I'm proud to have gotten to have played with him in our comedy rock musical Vince Lombardi, and, to be honest, I long for its resurrection. And, in addition to all that other stuff, plenty of insight on social and political matters, too. But in true fashion of being a great dude, that only comes up if he's asked. We get to talking about more or less all of that stuff in this conversation, so check it out. They, they quote Mobb Deep at a certain point in one of the songs, so you're like, oh, all right, cool.
Knowledge,
they know, yeah, it's not like, I'm Hamilton, and I'm here to say that I was here since 1778, whatever.
2 years after the revolution.
I feel like that might be part of the allure of it, is the idea that it's like, man, you guys successfully made something that wasn't lame about this. Ryan is a big fan, and I usually trust him.
Yeah, we can trust Ryan.
So you might talk to him. He specifically said that
you're shoulder blocking me, bro.
Oh shit! I'm sorry, bro.
Let's do
sorry
this.
to all the viewers right now.
Right on.
I don't think there are any still.
They want to see.
They might after.
You never know.
You never know who's watching.
People turn on for you and Crosley's thing?
On Instagram, yeah.
Oh, damn.
So, I don't know, maybe Facebook, or maybe just nobody pays attention. Now, what we need to do is not pay attention to the live stream.
Yeah, of course.
Because then we're just going to talk about this the whole time. So explain to me what happened with the injury.
Oh, okay. Well, this is a fun one.
Oh, nice. Good.
So, so basically, hi, I'm Lucas Gadke.
I usually don't even intro, but yes, I will do an intro.
All right,
after
cool.
The fact, but now this is in there too.
I was on tour.
Lucas is talking.
All right, I was on tour with my band Volar down in the United States. We were doing kind of the run from New York to Florida, over to Texas, up to the Midwest, and basically we were playing in Lafayette on a Monday night, which is like this kind of like cute Cajun town. I would recommend it to anybody who wants to go. It seems like a cool place. And we got this last minute Airbnb at this place called the Duchess. And, it was like, it almost seemed like it was too good to be true. It was like $50. The guy who was doing it was really nice. He had this little parlor in the front area where you had the Airbnb, and he was like, I've got like a mint julep going or something if you want some. I'm about to start playing music. I do like Cajun Zydeco music, and I can explain to you the difference between the two of them. And he had a little like drum kit set up, and he had an accordion, and he was like, there's another guest there, and he was like playing his Cajun Zydeco kind of. He's like, Cajun's like this, and blah blah, and Zydeco's like this, and the room was like really cute. It was like a little annex, and there was like a staircase going up to it, a little landing, and then another small staircase going up to the actual room, which was like a little two-room thing with a tiny little toilet that you had to like, if I wanted to pee in it, I had to like crouch down. But after the show, which was new band touring Monday night, small Monday Lafayette, there was maybe like 20 people there or something, which is like, I was pretty happy about it.
That's actually extraordinarily good.
Yeah,
for Monday.
Exactly. So we go back to this place, and it's like 20 degrees out, so we're like, let's enjoy the nice night air. And we're hanging on the balcony of this place, this little landing, and I was actually sitting on one of the balconies at one point, and Laura was like, don't sit on the balcony, it makes me nervous. So I like got down and went and like leaned on this other balcony, and after like 5 minutes I just heard like crack, the railing gives out. I remember like it's like 3 distinct moments, it's like, or like 4 distinct moments basically, like hear the crack, we fall. I actually grabbed onto one of the spindles that was underneath me, thinking like maybe I could like hang on.
Right.
Then I remember like being in midair, thinking like, oh shit, I'm gonna hit the ground.
Yeah.
And then hitting the ground, being in like an incredible amount of pain. Can't breathe, like super winded. Laura's beside me. She also fell, but she landed on some weird plant, like this tropical plant bulb, which had this odd kind of sap in it that made her really, really itchy later. And yeah, like couldn't breathe. Was like pretty hyped up on adrenaline. So I actually stood up. You'll like this. The guy, the owner of the place, came out and he was like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" And he was like, "You guys need to go to the hospital." And I foolishly hadn't bought travel insurance. So here's a message to your listeners: anybody who's going down to the States, buy travel insurance.
Okay.
And I was like, I can't go to the hospital. Like stupid country.
No doctors.
I was like, stupid country, stupid Ronald Reagan, stupid.
Nice.
Yeah,
Had
I was
to
like,
curse the United States.
I was like cursing the United States, cursing Republican presidents. I was just so so amped up on adrenaline, and then like from there, the timeline for me gets a little blurry. But essentially, like I broke. We went to the hospital in the morning. I'd fractured 3 ribs, and was just kind of like in Lafayette for a day, in sitting in the hospital. That was kind of my waiting for X-rays, and that was about it.
So how were the wait times?
The wait times were fine. We went to not the free, but the kind of public hospital, which is where like the,
It's where the poor people go?
Where poor people go, or like, I guess if I could be so bold, it was like basically everyone in there was black. Everyone in the waiting room was black, and probably the only 2 white people waiting to get treated, and they couldn't actually enter in our information because they'd never encountered a person from Canada before.
Never.
So it seems like we probably actually won't get billed. Because they were like people come in here all the time without insurance and they live in Lafayette and we like just don't go after them.
Amazing.
Because they're like I think seems the way it works is like if you go to the regular hospital in America, they can turn you away. Is that the idea?
I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea. But hey, calm down.
Hey, buddy.
So they can't turn you away, and like I didn't get surgery, I didn't get like anything. I just got a few X-rays taken, so I don't think they're gonna like come after me for it.
I mean, how did you see how much the actual cost of that X-ray would be?
No.
I'm curious to know.
We Googled it, and it was like, cost of a X-ray visit for broken ribs, and the Google answers said it was like anywhere between $1,300 and $2,000.
Which is amazing.
And it's like in Ontario it would be like, I think the cost of that would be like $700.
Would it?
I mean, like to the system.
Okay.
To get like to pay for an X-ray technician for the time, to pay for the doctor to take you in.
So you dug a bit deeper into the costs of.
Well, because I looked it up, and OHIP will cover out-of-country expenses up to Ontario rates. You know what I mean?
I see. Okay, so if you were to be charged...
Yeah, if I was to be charged, like, OHIP would probably cover, like, probably half of it.
Right.
But it's, like, things... It's just... And, like, I think Louisiana might even be a cheap state.
Right.
It's just things... Like, the medical system is just so much more expensive down there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's... I was like... It's kind of a bit of a fear of mine is being forced to go into a hospital in a foreign country.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's stuff you can work out if you go to like other places. And it also, I think it really depends on what kind of thing you have, right? Like, going for me, it was just like they did the X-rays, and then with broken or fractured ribs, it's just like, yeah, they're fractured. Take it easy. That's how it works.
You don't operate on that.
No.
So do those bones just mend themselves?
Yeah, unless they're like out of joint, right? Then they just mend themselves because there's nothing you can really do. If they're out of whack, then yeah, I think you got to go in and like reset them or something. But if they're just normal fractures like I had, and there's so much muscle there holding everything together, it's I think it's you have to like really hurt yourself to like knock your ribs out of place. But yeah, they were just like, take it easy, don't do anything that hurts, and cough once a day or else you'll get pneumonia.
Oh, cough once a day. I'm a pretty busy guy.
Yeah, well, man, like I gotta tell you, like this injury, it's like sitting at rest is like minorly in discomfort, and I can walk around or whatever. But I sneezed on Tuesday, like a week ago, and I was on the couch. I fell over. You know what I mean? I was like on all fours. Like I like rolled over my back. My whole face went red. It was so painful.
Whoa.
And then I was like in general discomfort for like 36 hours afterwards.
It's incredible.
Yeah. I lay on the couch in a weird way last night, and I could barely sleep.
Fuck.
You know?
It's yeah. Well, I guess is it because it's such a full body thing to sneeze, and you just don't.
It's
realize
like
that?
It's
like a compression of your
as a singer, right? It's like you use your
diaphragm,
whole chest cavity, right? And it's like when that happens, you're am I allowed to swear?
yeah.
Oh
Dude.
yeah, damn.
Ooh, the bad boy of doom.
But
Yeah, that's so did you guys play after that?
we played one show.
You played one show.
Yeah, and because it was like I was like I can't just give up. You know what I mean? And it's not giving up. You know what I mean? Taking time off.
Taking time for yourself is not
Taking time
necessarily
off
giving
for
up.
health reasons is not necessarily giving up. But if I was just like, I can't have come all this way, and you know how hard booking those indie punk tours are, right? It's like it's just so much like work and stress, and you're like, well, I'm going to go out and I'm going to make $100 in a night, and you know, sleep on a floor somewhere. And so it's just so much work. And so we took the next. We were supposed to play in San Antonio. We took that off, and then we were going to play in Austin during South by Southwest, not for it, but during it. And I was like, this is like the crux of the tour, you know, this like
this was the show that you sort of built everything around.
Yeah. So we went and we played at this, it was called, you'd love it. It was called South by Stoner Jam. And
What?
I got to send you a picture
Was this an event? Or
yeah.
South by
I got to send you a
Stoner
picture
Jam.
of the
what are the band names?
not
and
the
shit?
band names, but also just the poster, because it was like
Is it like this naked chick was like
no,
a bunch
it was
of, like,
it was even
weed
better.
leaves?
It was just a Grim Reaper like over a bunch of weed.
Yeah, it's
The guys
probably
were great.
sick.
The guys who were putting it on were great. I can't fault it. It was a hilarious poster. And I think your thing's doing something weird.
I know my storage it's always almost full.
Yeah, so we played the one show, and it's like I said, it's like, you know, you're sitting in a car, if you're at rest, if you're not doing anything, it doesn't actually feel that bad. But then like when we got on stage and we started doing it, and I do that like, you know, that like kind of vocals,
exactly.
and to like really project those, you know, it requires a lot of muscle. And like it was just like anytime we would do it, it would just, I could just feel it squeezing my ribs.
Oh, that's bad.
And then like it would come out kind of like you know.
I mean, you know what, man? There are way weaker metal vocalists that get by, so I'm
Yeah.
sure no one noticed.
Yeah,
Like,
but it felt so defeating, you know what I mean? And then so like you're hurting yourself that way, and then just like holding the bass on my shoulders, you know, it was just like, it's just you know, like it's kind of like, and then by the end of the set, I like knew I was like, we can't go on, you know. And it was a bummer because it was at South by, where like, you know, I'm meeting like, you know, everybody's there, so I'm meeting like my people that work for the record label and the PR guy, and they're like, oh man, great set, you want a beer? And I'm just kind of like, I'm just gonna sit down,
Right.
you know,
Right.
for like 2 hours. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, and then you went home from there.
We stayed in Austin for a day because I still hadn't like told everybody, but I knew like kind of in my heart of hearts. So we were touring with another band.
Oh, okay.
Right? Who was also on Prophecy, which is our label. And, we kind of like booked it as this package tour. And I just put it off a little bit because I didn't want to like. So they went out and they played this other show that we were supposed to do in a place called San Marcos, which is like a suburb of Austin.
Okay.
And I was just kind of at home, like, we're not at home at Steve, our booker's place, like the booking agent.
Okay.
And just convalescing. And, I told the guys, I told Laura and Justin, I was like, I can't go on, I can't do another 9 shows. Right?
That's how many shit. Wow.
Or is it 8 or 9 shows or something like that? So that was pretty sad. And then drove home on Friday.
Yeah.
It's just 3 days straight from Austin.
Yeah. Harsh. And were you driving?
I drove for like 4 hours at a time.
Okay.
And it wasn't so bad,
Right. Because I like when I saw your post that you had injured yourself, I was like, man, what is it? Is it with you?
Yeah.
Does that occur to you? Like with I've forgotten all the specific details with like the appendix
that one
scenario,
was a big one.
But it's like fuck, because he's like just like a victim of circumstance.
Yeah,
like,
every health thing that's ever happened to me has like been non-self-inflicted.
It's not you like not eating healthy or like smoking and drinking too much and so on. It's like these things that just like, because it's like the appendix was like, that was a 2-act.
That was a 2-act one. It was the appendicitis, which like I've talked to a lot of doctors, and anyone would agree. It's like, what could I have done to prevent this? They're like, nothing. It just happens. Yeah. And then afterwards, it was like a not poorly sealed, but like an infection after an operation, which happens, I think, in like 1 out of every 6.
Okay.
Maybe it's lower, but it's like
that's a pretty high amount.
It's fairly common.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, think about it. You're going in, you're like cutting a piece of a person out and sewing it back up. It's like not a. It's not an exact science. Like, I mean,
You're being very forgiving to the doctor,
yeah,
as opposed to being like,
I mean,
like litigation is pending.
My mom's a nurse, and like, I think at one point I made a joke about suing him, and she's like, you can't sue for that. You could sue for like leaving a sponge inside you, but you can't. That happens a lot.
Oh, that's gross.
My mom worked in the OR, and she was like. She told me she worked with a woman who was she thought she was a sociopath.
Okay.
And she would like hide sponges, and like they're very stringent about sponge count. So like you open a sponge, it goes on a mark, you take a sponge out and you mark it down, right?
Okay.
So like you'll use like, in excess of 30 in any operation.
And this is for like blood flow?
Yeah, blood clot, like just wiping up.
And these
blood,
are not
whatever.
like dish sponges. These are
these are some sort of medical sponges.
Okay.
I don't really know the exact specifics of it. But she's like, this woman would like a couple of times she like hid sponges
in people
and or like just around or something like that, and like would like kind of watch the chaos, because like you gotta find these sponges, because then the hospital and the crew is like medically liable for something like that. An infection you're not liable for it, because it's just kind of it's an act of God. It's part of the risk of being operated on.
Right. So like, did this woman get found out that
Oh, I can't remember the story.
Like how did it come to? I imagine that would be something that would be narrowed down.
I think it was, from what I understood, it was like a little bit of just suspicion.
Right.
And it's one of the, I'm a pro-union guy, but it was like kind of the downside of the union, where she just got like shuttled off somewhere else.
Yeah.
After enough people had complained about her.
Right.
Yeah.
And now she's off hiding sponges somewhere else.
Hopefully not. But yeah.
I mean, not in my backyard. That's all I really care about.
Yeah. NIMBY.
That's okay. So with the U.S. So when you booked the U.S. Stuff, so we had
a booking agent.
You had an agent.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that nice?
It was nice.
I wish I had that shit, man. That'd be awesome.
It makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to pay for it, but it's like, I think it's
right. A commission on
Yeah,
Was it a flat rate? Was it based on, because if it was based on the amount of money you make,
it was it was a percentage.
Wow, who does that? Who does that?
I mean, I think he wants to build a roster.
So how do you know this guy?
He lives in Austin, and our PR guy hooked him up with us.
And you have a PR guy who's through your label?
Through the label, yeah.
Okay. Cool.
And he tours a lot, so I think that's kind of where he got it. And he has a lot of friends who are in bands who put on shows. You know, it's like the kind of community of friends thing that kind of pushes things along in this scene.
Do you find that like being out on the road? I mean, this was a bit more like you joined Blood Ceremony after kind of the greater bulk of Blood Ceremony had been, you know, was where they were at, after they had the good fortune of meeting Lee and
most of the groundwork had been laid.
Yeah. So in this case, this is you doing like the full on like ground level kind of shit, which is quite a bit different. But I guess my question was, do you find, because I do, when you're like with Blood Ceremony, maybe, and because you only been out with Volar the once, but like, do you find it's like you kind of run into there aren't as many bands that tour as you think there are? Like, there's like, I don't know. I'm doing it. I do my thing at the level that Volar's doing their shit at, you know. And it's like you realize there's only so many people that are gonna jump over that hurdle and actually like leave their 2-hour radius.
Yeah, and it's like it's a big risk.
Yeah,
you know. And I think people understand that, you know, or at least people try to make it understood, because like a lot of times in the event stuff and like, you know, the promoters would be like, their way of doing it a lot of time was like, all right, so we got a local act who has a good draw, they're gonna be the headliner, and you guys are gonna open for them, and that was always kind of the way it was. And I was totally happy to do it, and you know, you'd always like make a point to like say, these guys are from here, these guys are from out of town, you know, and we'd go up on stage and be like, we're from Toronto, and you know, in some of the places you'd get like a cheer from people, because I don't think a lot of small bands really come through.
Yeah,
you know?
I got that a lot. I got that when I got that being in Fredericton. More so because like this, I did this radio session once, and the lady who facilitated it was like, yeah, we don't get too many. I'm like, you guys aren't that far. Like, where the hell else do Canadian, aside from going to the States, which is a whole nother clusterfuck if you're going to do it legally.
Yeah. Of course.
Where do they go? I mean, I think that there's only so many people that really venture that far. And, you know...
Yeah, and like, do tours as opposed to doing, like, excursions or whatever.
Yeah, like the Weekend Warrior shit. I'm trying to do a bit more of that. Like, you know, just stuff where you...
That's fucking lame,
2 hour...
Don't do that shit. Gotta go hard the whole way.
Gotta go hard! Or just play locally every day.
Every week, just another... Like,
how's your guys' residency going at the Junction City Music Hall?
At the Drake Hotel.
Dude, man, maybe 30 years ago, we might have been able to have that conversation. That'd be so... Like, isn't that... Like, I want to know, like, let's say 50 years ago, if we were, like, in... Birmingham.
Yeah.
We were like, hey mate, let's go see the Earth residency at, you know, Gus's Public House Local 26.
I mean, it's real, right?
It's real. They probably just played all fucking covers.
Did you watch
lots of jazz?
Did you watch the This Is Twisted Fucking Sister documentary?
No.
Oh man, you gotta watch that.
Yeah? I mean, I think Dee Snider's a real smart guy. Like,
it's great, but it's like I didn't realize, and I think most people didn't, that like they were a band for like 8 years before We're Not Gonna Take It came out.
Oh yeah,
8 fucking years, and they did the tri-state area circuit,
shit.
and it's like them talking about like. I wish I could remember the guitar player's name, but it's like the guy talking about like, yeah, we used to do the Palais Royale in Long Island, and he was like, great system there, held about 1,500 people, you know, and then it's like showing like these like calendars that Twisted Sister would have, and it'd be like they do these like 2-week stints in all these different clubs,
crazy,
and like they got this like rabid fan following in the local area, and then they would like go play like a club in New York City and play to like 4 people, like 2 of whom were like people that like followed them in, or like
So
were,
they were
like,
so they were like they had this like like the Tri-Cities, but just like couldn't make it in New York.
couldn't make it in New York, couldn't make it in Philly, like couldn't get out of that thing. And it's like
so crazy.
They
That's
just
so
they
cool.
fucking worked that. They
Yeah.
like worked it so hard.
Because I remember hearing like when Dee Snider testified when the PMRC was a
Yeah.
big thing for the parental advisory shit, and he notoriously, do you know this, when he came
Oh,
into
yeah,
the
yeah.
into I don't know if it was in the Senate or where it was, to speak to the board, and and he comes dressed in his like
Yeah, yeah.
ridiculous street urchin clothes, but it's like it's to prove a point, because then you realize he's very articulate when he
Yeah,
speaks.
yeah.
And I think they were like asking him his age, and he's like, I'm 34 or something. You're just like, what?
Yeah. It's like you think in your head, you're like, oh yeah, these young kids.
Yeah,
It's
like 3 years ago they got on.
No, they'd been at it for a while.
That's amazing. I mean, you don't hear Van Halen was like that. Van Halen was like the backyard parties of California. It just
Yeah.
sounds like the funnest shit. Like, yeah, we just play these parties, and like, that's how we got good. And we played a mix of covers and things, and we were like playing. We played, I don't remember, the Hollywood Bowl, or probably not that. I don't know. Somewhere like a somewhere between 2,000 and 5,000 people, like organically, like you or me putting up posters and shit, being like, hey man,
damn.
come by the gig. And then like 3,000 people do.
Whoa.
And that was before labels got on board. Like,
Whoa.
that shit is crazy to me. I mean, I think it's awesome. And part of me does wish I lived in that world.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, even though I realize the flip side of that is like being like Pentagram or something, where granted there's other reasons why that story worked out
Yeah.
the way it did.
Yeah.
But like where you're just like fucking waiting for the gatekeeper, which is the only way that you're
they had a label in the 80s though.
They did.
But it was like an indie label.
But that was 10 years after,
Yeah.
after, and like how many formations of that band after.
Yeah.
And they sounded like this weird rip-off like Black Sabbath band by
Yeah.
that point.
As opposed to being another kind of weird ripoff Black Sabbath band in the early 70s.
I think they were a bit more like on the, I don't know. I haven't,
Blue Oyster Cult kind of thing.
yeah, it's like the sort of like heavy metal,
Yeah.
like kind of thing. Like I liked the 80s shit, but dude, there's a one song off of I don't even remember. One of
Just
those
a compilation.
three releases that came. I got one of the ones. It was okay, but it was like there was literally an ad lib from Bobby that was like, "All right now,
Oh yeah.
oh yeah," like literally in succession. Those two things. I was like, and I mean, they were more or less, not quite, but more or less contemporary. Like
Yeah.
technically, I'm just saying that like it'd be weird to like, okay, if we go back to the beginning of both of those bands, maybe Pentagram started like 3 or 4 years after Black Sabbath. So you're like this, and then one guy's like, whoa, and then all of a sudden he's your idol, like
Yeah.
weird.
It is weird.
And then you like,
Then you get hooked on drugs.
and then you get hooked on drugs, and like, but then you find this weird like second wind when you're well past middle age, like
Yeah, I mean, it's a strange cultural phenomenon that like blends, it blends like kind of like hipster. I knew it first with nostalgia.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? It's like we're living in that kind of thing with like Rodriguez, Anvil,
Charles Bradley.
yeah, Charles Bradley, Pentagram, all that kind of stuff. And I think it also speaks to like a misunderstanding in the general public of like how the music industry works. Because it's like all the tenor of all those documentaries is like, this guy was a genius.
Right.
Why wasn't he huge? And it's like, oh, there's so many factors at play that like, that go into like why a person didn't get big, and it's not just like this person's amazing and they deserve to be,
Right. Well, I suppose it's an interesting. It just makes for an interesting story. The Rodriguez one in particular is pretty fascinating, I think, like because it's like, I don't know, how sick would it be to find out when someone's like, dude, you were like the most important artist to an entire country
Yeah.
of people of a certain age, like, and you're just like,
I always think it's interesting though that movie left out the fact that it was all basically Afrikaners that were into it.
oh, okay, so
You know
yeah, it was
what I
all
mean?
white, yeah,
Yeah, all like the Dutch white settlers. You know what I mean?
right.
I don't even think because I know there's a certain number of like English settlers in South Africa.
I don't know the difference.
Not as
to be
many,
honest,
not as
but,
many. But
yeah, so it's mainly Afrikaners.
yeah, but whatever. You know, it would be amazing. It would be amazing to like.
To have that come out of the blue. I mean, that guy sort of was portrayed almost as like a Jesus Christ type character, you know? It's just like he doesn't even know the importance of what he does. Doesn't matter. He just did it. He just did it. But I mean, that's awesome. You know, it's like the Charles Bradley. Did he have a documentary attached to him first?
He might have.
I kind of get him and Lee Fields mixed up. If you know Lee Fields, he's another soul singer, older dude. I think Charles Bradley had a documentary first and then became... First of all, dude, that Changes cover...
That's dope.
That's like... I wish that was the original version.
I feel like it also... what's the word I'm looking for? I can't remember. Made me seem right in the long run. What's that word? Never mind. But yeah, I always love fucking Changes. I always love that tune. And then people were like, "That's the worst song Black Sabbath
That is the
ever
fucking
did."
worst song.
Wrong. You're wrong. That changed.
Well, they just needed another guy. They needed to have a guy that was delivering it the way that they probably wanted Ozzy to deliver it in the first place, instead of like, you know, like, I'm a witch. Like, it just doesn't work. You're not a soul singer.
I think that track rules.
Dude, I cannot get down with that. Like, even if they were doing it to like,
Is that on Volume 4?
Yeah,
Yeah.
What the fuck was that doing on there? Like, people wear that T-shirt, and it's kind of like, I'm like, it's cool, but yeah.
But they had a soft song on all three of the, you know.
Well, I think
Paranoid.
Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath's fucking like more like heartfelt songs are amazing. I don't know if it's like, I think they just got better at writing tunes, so that some of those tracks on Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath are like not heavy, but somehow still good.
Good.
How is this possible?
Not heavy, but good.
Yeah,
Oh.
this throws off my whole axis. But it's like,
Whatever. I still like that song.
Well, I mean, that's fair. But like, what were they thinking? I'm just okay. You like the song, I get that.
Yeah.
But like, because I don't think that like it's by far their most commercial, one of their most commercial tracks. But it's like not even when it come out, like 1972, something like that.
No, I think that's 74.
74. Was that wouldn't have even been like radio rock, like slow ballad.
I'm trying to. I mean, like, who was king in like the early 70s? Is like the Carpenters and like the Eagles,
Right, for
You know
like
what I mean?
smooth rock.
And I mean,
yeah.
those guys were like huge Beatles fans. I think that's where it comes from.
Okay.
Is like we want to do like a soft song like
Right.
the Beatles used to do with piano in it, you know?
Right. You know, one of the weird things is like, I think Kiss's first #1 song was Beth.
It's definitely like one of their biggest hits.
And it's like sung by the fucking drummer.
Yeah.
Like, it's like y'all couldn't get it together before the drummer sang the damn song. He's not even in the band anymore.
You ever see those videos where like there's like a video of him singing it? I like on some late night show, and he's like in the makeup, but he's like sitting on a stool. It's so funny.
Yeah, that's crazy. I don't even really know how Beth sounds. I've only heard it a couple
It's like
times.
kind of lame. I mean, I'm not a big Kiss fan.
Nor am I.
think
Nor am
they're
I.
Pretty.
I think it's like you can't. I don't know. Kiss is like.
It's like Aerosmith to me.
Well, I don't know. Talk to Alia about that. She loves that shit. Like,
Alia loves Kiss and like Aerosmith.
okay, you know what? That's right. She does.
Maybe I don't know if she likes Aerosmith actually though.
No, she does like Aerosmith. I've talked to her about that. Like the three eras of Aerosmith we've talked about before, because there's 3 eras.
Because there's like the early stuff with Dream On.
And that's the rough and ready Boston boys.
Yeah.
What do you call them? What do you call the Beantown? Is that what you call Boston?
Sure.
The Beantown boys. They had like the Toxic Twins.
Yeah.
They were like Joe Perry and fucking
Tyler.
Steven Tyler were like, you know, they were big running buddies doing drugs, playing this rough and ready rock and roll.
Is that the early era?
That's the early era. Bro.
Was that?
the
That's
best
where
era.
also where Dream On comes from.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yeah,
Which
for
is
sure.
like not indicative of the early era.
It's a pretty hard song. It's pretty fucking.
There's like, I think that's a good tune, but like the there's like a breakdown that happens like twice in the middle of it, and he goes like,
Yeah.
and like it sounds so bad. Like the guitar
Oh,
sounds
the
out of
tone
tune.
is horrible.
The
I agree.
tone is horrible. The guitar sounds out of tune, and every time I hear it, it just like I'm like, yeah, this fucking track rules. I like that Eminem song, and then. And then whenever I'm
These
listening,
ideas, nightmares to white parents, and you're like, oh, it's the old one. Fuck.
but then it always breaks down to that part, and I'm always like, whoa, fuck, like Joe Perry, like sucked at this point. Like,
Yeah, they really could have easily remedied that.
Yeah.
But I think that's also indicative of just what was sonically acceptable at that time.
yeah, it just sounds like it's like a guy. It's to me, it sounds like a 14-year-old kid
Playing
who
a
just got
practicing.
like a line 6 pedal. It was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
here's my, like,
No, I agree. I agree.
mellow distortion
It
tone.
really, it really doesn't. Yeah, but it's like I don't know. It's like listening to like Led Zeppelin albums and listening for all the guitar mistakes. There's fucking a lot.
But there's like mistakes or what I don't know. It's that one's always bugged me.
Yeah, no,
it's
I
like
hear
there's
you.
mistakes are one thing, and it's like, you know, I love those Bob Dylan records, and there's all these moments on those Bob Dylan records where guys are like
the electric
like,
guitar shit. Like,
electric guitar shit's whack. Like where like the bass player and like the bass, like it's like supposed to be a G, the bass player play an F, and like the keyboard player will play an A, and then they'll like just jump to the G, and it's just kind of like you're like, oh, like, you know, you guys had like probably like 2 months to record this record, and you just left that in.
still young, really drunk, or whatever. You know. That's
Yeah, and then there's the second era of Aerosmith, which is like Sweet Emotion.
I don't know when Sweet Emotion came out. That's got a great riff.
That is a
one
good-
riff.
That is a good tune.
The one riff, I kind of could do without the like sassy little lady with the bending days.
That's when they invented rap music, man.
Yeah, that's why they hooked up with Run DMC
Run
because
DMC
Run DMC had said like biggest influence.
Run DMC's
Kool Moe Dee,
Run DMC's
Aerosmith.
cousin called them up and was like, "Hey, this is your cousin, Jim DMC. You know that new sound you've been looking for?"
Listen to that. Yeah, so actually, so does that mean like Run DMC went into the past and like listened to
No, Aerosmith went into the past and invented rap music.
Right, okay, yeah, they invented rap, but who were they listening to at the time?
I don't know.
So yeah, fuck, or like if it came after, I can't place when Sweet Emotion came
No.
out, but yeah, maybe they were influenced by like the rhythmic cadence of and like they were gonna do it back and forth, but Joe Perry was too like reserved to do that.
Yeah,
That's a big thing about Joe Perry. He's kind of like
He's
a
playing that
reserved
sweet
guy.
riff. You
But
know?
that riff is sick. I could do without like oh, that riff is awesome. That's a fucking
that's a monster riff.
That's a monster riff. Hey, what do you think? What do you think makes a riff versus? Okay,
Ostinato.
no, versus well, yeah, but like versus like a chord progression thing. Like I'm gonna be honest, man. I don't get why people like Neurosis that much.
Okay.
Like I don't think Neurosis has riffs.
I'll be 100%. I've never really checked them out. I listened to Through Silver and Blood.
I love how you just had to
And-
like so many people. That's like a holy record. to
Oh,
them.
seriously, it is, and it's like, a lot of my friends and a lot of people are like, "Are you going to Neurosis tonight?" And I'm like, I kind of have a cold. Like I've always wanted to go because everyone like. Everyone's like, it's amazing. But like last time they came through, I was like, I kind of have a cold.
and you didn't even have a cold. And
Yeah, I was like, I think I might be getting a cold. But I mean, I listened to it and I was like, yeah, there's not really riffs on this.
Yeah.
And then like, what's the difference between a riff and a?
So what's the difference between a riff where I feel like I categorize something that's not a riff as when it's like, okay, a bunch of power chords they're serving a progression of some kind versus a riff, which is generally speaking, like a riff is like a single note idea. It's like, let's say it's what's the word? It's horizontal on the guitar as opposed to vertical. But that, I mean, like the greatest or the most well-known riff of all time, "Smoke on the Water," is chords.
It's
Like,
chords. I would say it's more about like how it's like the space, right? Like a chord progression
leaves no space.
feels like has
Think so?
has space time wise, right? You know what I mean? So it's like, there's no kind of like intervening notes or anything like that. You know what I mean? Like, I would feel like it's not like when you listen to Smoke on the Water, it's like the chords are not like it was a G. It's like G, like G, B flat, C. Like the chords are not you know what I mean? It's like the chord underneath it is G.
Right.
And then you're playing this like melody
over top
of it. So I think a riff is like it's
kind of static in terms of
if you were looking at it like from a music theory perspective, it's like a voice. You know what I mean? Whereas a chord is like a structural framework.
It's a support. It's a support as opposed to the
because it's a specific part, right? Like you can't play the Smoke on the Water riff by going like G power chord, B flat power chord, C power chord, right? It's not the riff. The riff is it's in the first inversion, right? So
it's the fifth on the bottom.
Fifth or the fifth on the
the second inversion.
Yeah, the second.
If we look, it's actually.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like a specific part. So it's a voice, right? In terms of like when you're talking about like different voices in music, whereas like I feel like a chord progression can be played any mix of ways, you know what I mean? And it's like a framework, and it's like it doesn't have these specific like moments in between the chord changes. You know what I mean? Because a riff can also have a chord change in it as well. Like the Black Sabbath, that riff, dom bow bow, that's G D flat, right? But the riff itself, the voice is like the voice of the riff is the octave and then the tritone with the thing on it. But the chords are literally like G minor, probably like D flat minor. Right? And so those are the chords, and you can play those. You could pick up the keyboard and just play those in any inversion any way you want. But if you want to do that riff, it's G.
It's that specific thing.
D flat. With
the
trill. That's the riff.
That's the riff. Yeah, it's just like I'd like to sit down and be like, just listen to songs and be like, is that the riff? No,
is that the riff?
No, it's not the riff.
Can you cage it?
It's not. It's not. Doesn't need to be caged. It's already tame. It's no riff. Where did you see that ad that you sent me?
I have no idea where that came. I can't remember. It was what
was it? After you sneezed, you're like on the floor, like, oh, this is a good meme. I need riffs. It's a good meme. I'll send it to Mike.
But then it's like, that's a weird thing. Like, is the thing from Smells Like Teen Spirit? Is that a riff?
Yeah, see, that's power chords.
Those are chords, right?
And it's a progression, and he sings based off of that, and that's the whole fucking song, is that one progression.
I mean, the depth of part that's like, that's a riff.
Yeah, that's a sick, like Melvin's riff. That's a sick riff.
Yeah,
that's a solid riff. I mean, the other riffs, it's all right. It's all right. It's okay. It's a fine riff, I guess.
That's the other like most famous guitar.
It's up there. I don't know. Like, can we agree that like undisputed Smoke on the Water number one
riff
of all time?
Maybe.
I'm not saying like it's the best.
No,
that's another conversation. But like the most pop, most recognizable riff. Yeah,
I'd say so.
I think so because I knew what it was long before I even knew what song it was.
Yeah,
I remember there was an episode of it's one of the sketches in Kids in the Hall where Bruce is like the kid who's like, screw you, Dad.
Is that the one where he fights the devil?
Yeah, and he fights the devil, and the devil is like a mean shredder, and Bruce is just like, duh, duh, duh.
All those things with the devil rule.
Yeah.
Mark McKinney is the devil.
Oh, he's so sick. But he's like, he makes a deal with, what's up?
Does that matter?
I don't care. Couldn't wait. What's this say? Oh, someone's Christian. Hey, Christian.
Hey.
Oh, I think Christian is like literally the first person who was.
Hi, Christian.
Watching. I think Anyway, now that we've achieved.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. I like to break these. It's fun. It's a fun question. I like to break these things down.
Well, I was thinking about it. I was gonna send Brett an email because he was always like the riff master in my mind, and yeah, he was kind of. I think he was he liked Neurosis, and I always felt overrated, and that's what I felt. But one of the reasons was because I was like, you guys have this like crossover into the doomy kind of stuff, but y'all ain't got the riffs to back it up. Anyway, I don't want to turn this into like a Neurosis shit talking session.
This is the
you've admitted
Neurosis shit talking podcast by just every episode.
Every episode, I get like friends on who's like, "Have you heard of this band Neurosis?" And they're like, "No, I actually, I'm just a high school friend of yours. I'm not as invested." And it's like,
well, anyway, Souls at Zero. This is what we're gonna talk about today.
Yeah, you might want to hear. Let me give you some headphones. I'm gonna talk about it for a bit. And
here's
then,
a weird painting of a wolf that they'll put on their albums or something.
Isn't that stupid?
Who puts wolves on their shit?
Well, I mean, there's part of it. Okay, there may be a deeper element to this that we can get beyond Neurosis this way is a desire, at least on my part, to be a bit contrarian to.
Oh, always.
Well, when three people tell you that something's awesome. I don't know. What's your immediate impulse?
Oh yeah. Well, it also depends like who's telling me and when they're
telling me. So if it's
me.
like, okay, so let's say first of all it's like the coolest dude you know.
Yeah, well, okay, yeah, it's like if my brother Noah tells me to go check out some black metal band, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go do that because it's cool.
Okay.
But if like some guy that I meet at a show who's like, you know, being a Punisher and telling me about every show he's seen over the past 6 months, and he's like, oh yeah, you know, like Choking Bat came through. I'm like, oh yeah, and he's like, do you know them? I'm like, no, and he's like, you'd really like it, and then immediately I'm just like, oh, I'm never checking that shitty band out.
Oh man, yeah, like you gotta get the right emissaries. You know, if you're Choking Bat, you gotta pick your people so that they're cool people. So you come up, he's got a cool leather jacket on. And he's
calling
like,
you out, Choking Bat.
So he's like, you gotta make sure, like when you're with Voller, you gotta make sure you got cool people at your shows, so that you know when they spread the gospel of your band like pollen.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that they'd be a cool person who would walk up to you and just, you know, ride up on their motorcycle and just be like, you know, like, what's up, man? How's it going? Yeah, I'm doing good. You've heard this band Voller before?
Yeah, I'm drinking craft beer or not drinking craft beer.
Yeah, it depends on how far 360 you've gone with that. It's like, I'm drinking craft beer again after not drinking craft beer, and now I'm back to it. But it's not that important to me.
Yeah, that's what we got to do. I don't know. Yeah, the contrarian thing is it's a hard impulse to like mitigate. It also like saved me from a lot of crap when I was younger. I feel like a lot of people were posting on Facebook about not Limp Bizkit, Korn.
Okay.
For whatever reason, a couple days ago, and like a lot of my friends were into Korn, and I was like, "You guys are into it? It must suck." and then I went and I watched the video for Freak on a Leash, probably in the first time in like
I don't know if I've ever actually seen it. I know the song. 20,
you know, whenever the fuck it came out, like it's like 15 years, 16 years, however long ago it came out, and I was like, "This sucks." It's like profoundly sucks so much, and I was like, I'm glad I was like able to kind of be like, I'm not even gonna look at this when I was younger.
Right. Well, I mean, with you in particular, like I've definitely there if other people were to do something like put up you know, whatever, you're listening to the Bach Inventions, and then right after I'm listening to Bell Witch or something like that. If it runs so contrary to how I tend to view what a fucking poser is, that if you weren't you, I would be like, fuck you, man.
Fuck this guy.
But the thing is, I can't, it's like, Lucas is the exception. He actually means, like, his interests are broad, and he gives everything a chance. And like part of that, I think, is partially, you know, having a cool older brother.
That's a big part of it.
You know, you kind of like, so that nostalgic things that aren't that are for many people, whether we like it or not, it's something that we're attracted to, some cultural thing. You managed to kind of avoid that.
Well, this is like the problem. One of the big things between us is the Soundgarden thing, right?
You should be there with me on that. Have you listened to the earlier records?
Yeah.
They're a little doomier.
Yeah, I have listened to it.
So I know what it's like. It's like that earlier. I think their first album was out on SST. You like Black Flag, like.
I should be there with it, but I'm not for whatever reason.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's a failing on your part.
That is a failing on my part, but it means I'm not a fucking poser because I like what I like.
No, exactly.
Not that Soundgarden fans are posers, but it's like.
Well, yeah, no, see, like that's that's just the one thing I wish we could.
I wish we could get together on.
But
I don't think they're bad. There's nothing. I will always make it a point when it's like a band is bad and I don't like it, or sometimes a band's bad and I do like it. But like they're not a bad band at all. I can listen to it and be like, all right, I get it. But like it just doesn't like just go into my heart like the way Bolt Thrower, who like their early records, those records are like kind of bad. You know what I mean? Like the drumming.
Fine.
The drumming is really bad on some of those records, and it's like I just fucking love it.
I think, I don't know. Bolt Thrower is one. It's one of those things where, like, I just parachuted into that show in London, because I got a free ticket, and I'm just kind of like watching. I'm like, it was good. And people, meanwhile, just the difference in people's reactions is like
people losing their fucking.
People
shit
coming
at
from
that
ever.
show.
That was a big fuck. It was like the Pope was fucking coming to town or something. Like. It's like the difference in how much something matters to someone. I suppose that's really a good indication of the arbitrariness of taste.
Yeah, it's like where you were when you heard it, what you were doing, how old you were. It's all like a huge part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's like Oh no, I was just gonna say, you know what they say in German for matter of taste?
What?
Geschmacksfrage.
Ooh, taste question of
taste.
taste.
It's a question of taste.
Yeah.
Das ist ein Geschmacksfrage.
Geschmacksfrage.
I think. So what's next for Lucas Gadke?
Ooh, well, I'm spending the next 3 weeks.
3 weeks?
It's supposed to be 6 to 8 weeks is how long it takes you to kind of.
See, that's the other thing too. Is one thing that you get injured. It's another thing that you like have to spend this is like something when you look back at the year 2018.
Yeah, I'll be like,
you'll be like, there was that month and a half I was not moving around very much and coughing once a day. I don't know. I mean, it's a good break. It's like it's forced me to kind of like start writing more, which is something I find difficult. As in writing tunes,
writing music.
Okay.
Yeah. It's something I find difficult to like force myself to do because I'm one of these guys that like I get an idea and I'm like, I'm gonna go write it, and I go really hard into it.
Okay.
But it's like there's a practice to writing. There's like a thing you have to kind of work at that you can't just always be like, it's like I feel like it shouldn't be just like inspiration and here I go.
Okay, so you mean, well, I don't know, tell me if this relates. I remember reading a quote from Dave Holland about like, sometimes writing has a lot to do with inspiration, but a lot of it is about being in the trenches, he says. Yeah,
I think so, and I'm bad at that part of it.
When you're just like, well, if it's not happening for me right now, I need to wait until it does.
Yeah, and then sometimes it just doesn't happen for like months and months.
Yeah, I mean, part of me before I've kind of wondered if it's like it's like a regenerative thing. You do it for a bit, and then it's like not there anymore, and then you're just like, all right, let's wait, and then 3 to 6 months later, but then it's like it's too long. It's too long to wait. I don't want to, and I need to push out.
Yeah.
I'm thinking more content. I'm sort of just embracing the tent slinging these days. But even when I wrote like more like metal music and stuff like that, it was like I did recognize it's a bit like if you didn't like, you know, get your rocks off for like 3 months or something, then you're just like, you know, like, you know, just like the shot is impressive versus if it's the third time that day. It's kind of like, I heard a comic call it like a baby when you feed it baby food. You know what I mean, though.
Bizarre.
You know what I'm saying.
You got into that. All right.
I feel like it's a good analogy.
This is a guy's podcast. Guy.
No, girls get off too,
kidding,
man.
I'm kidding.
You can do that. But yeah, you get what I'm saying. It's kind of like, is it similar to that? Is what I'm wondering.
I mean, I don't know. I think it's also about like taking the time to write, but then there's also like there's work that's done in writing that's not inspirational. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm working on something where I'm like actually like writing out, you know, like on bar notes. And it's like there's work on that's like I gotta like go in and like clean it up or like figure out these harmonies. And you know, it's not as much like, you know, it's not like, aha, I'll put the third on top of it. You know what I mean? It's a little more procedural. It's still creative, but it's, you know.
Don't you find a lot of times I find that aspect of it is one of my favorite aspects of it because it's I know how I should be spending my time during that period.
Yeah.
It's how I feel like people who are doing satisfying menial tasks.
Yeah.
Act or get to act. Mm-hmm. You know, if it's like, you know, here's 3,000 reports that need to be collated. We need to put the pages together in the right. I know what I'm gonna do, or like whatever. I need to stamp. I worked in a auto parts plant one summer, and you know, I got to stamp like 2,000 of these fucking things before I'm done. So you know, it doesn't necessarily safeguard you from like boredom or questioning why you're doing the activity, but a lot of times it can just be that simple task. So in the same way, when I have to do something like arrange, you know, copy and paste this region of a recording project or whatever, and then I have to like transpose everything down a half step, whatever. I know how I'm going to spend the next hour.
Yeah.
Versus like, and this is, you know, due to my own crippling self-doubt that you know, when you're trying to be like, what should the bridge be?
Yeah.
like so like that, or it's like, should I have a more, and this is all part of it while you're trying to figure, it's like, should I have a more efficient way of doing this?
Or like,
should I
a more efficient way of doing this, or like is this just, you know, it's like that Metallica thing. It's like, it just feels so stock. It's just stock.
It's just stock. You've got to say it in like the slightly like accented English. Just something about it that's just really stock.
So I mean, I never thought about like the like concept of it being more efficient. It's always felt like when you're producing something, when you're like composing something, it's like you need the kind of space. And I like to go for walks. That's like my key thing is like I'll come up with an idea. You know, I'll go, like a lot of ideas will come from playing. Mm-hmm. So it's like I'll be playing and then I'll hit on a melody or a riff and I'll be like, okay, and then I'll record it on my iPhone and then like leave the house, put it on my headphones and listen to it like 4 times and then just like in complete silence go for a walk for like half an hour and let my brain kind of like wander and kind of come up with a shape. And then go home and like sometimes I'll even just write like, you know, I'll be like riff 1, blast beat part, you know.
Okay.
I'll just actually have like a structure in mind. And I think like bugging yourself on efficiency in that moment isn't like the best idea.
No, I'm sure it's not.
Yeah. More my self-doubt more comes in where I'm like, is this good enough? But then my big break with that, what happened was when I started Volar, is like when I started like actually writing music, was like I went to a bunch of shows like around that time, like a lot, and I watched a lot of opening bands and I watched a lot of like shitty bands. And my thing before that was kind of like, oh, do I have like the right to like?
So that was like the best confidence boost.
I don't know. Like honestly, maybe it's like a shitty way to think about it, but I was
probably
like,
done that exact thing.
I was like, do I have the right? Like I listen to like all.
Do I have the right?
And, like I listen to all this music that I love and it's so brilliant, whatever. And then you like go out and you see, or like sometimes you see a band that you think sucks that people love, and you're like, oh, there's nothing like magical about this. It's like you can speak the grammar and put things together. It's like,
Yeah, absolutely. It's so that's really that's great. I mean, I'm glad you saw that. I could have told you that. Like, it's like,
Yeah.
dude, you're totally like you're allowed to do this. we would welcome your contribution.
Yeah.
I could, even if you didn't play an instrument, I feel like you could, like, you personally could like suggest good ideas to people.
How about a riff?
Can we do like a purple riff? Like it's like expanse. You know what I mean? It's like ocean waves.
Yeah.
Can you guys do it? Like maybe like down, 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 like that.
Maybe like a.
Yeah, you do one of those. I think that's that's good. Yeah, when you start to, I think that it's important to break down some of the barriers and like things which, if it's something's a Geschmacksfrage, like, which it all is, it really can kind of free you to like my friend Carl was telling me about this band, and if Carl happens to be listening to this, because he might, I'm probably not going to tell the story as well, but it was like when was it Illuminato when Sun played at the power station?
Yeah.
Really wish I would have gone to that show.
It was pretty fucking cool.
I'm sure it was awesome.
Yeah.
So there was some other band or another night, maybe the same night, some other like solo dude or something.
It was The Bug.
Maybe. Okay, well tell me if this sounds like it. It was like the stage was covered in smoke.
Yeah.
The guy's entire set, you couldn't see anything. And that's apparently his deal. And maybe the music is amazing, but part of me was like wondering, it's like, was he even there?
Oh.
Like, imagine that, like, and people are like, no, that's just kind of his thing, man. He just doesn't like to be on stage and doesn't like to have instruments and, just make it about the music. It's like, well, fuck, does he even have to be there?
Yeah.
Like, that sounds fucking lame. And I'm saying that because I feel like I can judge that one thing, not the music. Sure, the music might be great, but I guess what I'm saying is what we already know. The taste is arbitrary, and I heard a lady on the radio today. I've been listening to CBC because
It's pretty good.
it's good, man.
Yeah.
I'm serious. Or are you being sarcastic?
No, it is. I
Okay.
think this is a whole nother topic of conversation.
Well, because I know you've had a lot of time with the CBC.
I listen to CBC a lot, and I think they put on some quality programming. Sometimes part of me is like, after you listen to it for like 2 months straight, you're like, I don't know how many more documentaries I can hear about like, an elderly woman whose cat died at like 10:30 in the morning. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
It's just like, I don't know how much more of this I can take.
Yeah.
But I think they do a good job.
Yeah, she was interviewing I forget. Oh, it was Q. It was somebody filling in for Tom
Pia
Power.
Chattopadhyay?
Huh?
Pia Chattopadhyay, maybe?
Pia Chattopadhyay. No,
Yeah.
she's someone. She did something else. I forget. It's also is it kind of like not even talked about anymore? How it's like something's different. These are all women voices. Now, is that something that's conscious from them?
I think they've always had a lot of women, like more women than normal on the CBC.
I think it's like predominantly, at least
like during the day.
During the day,
During the day for sure. Yeah.
Which is interesting. It's it's just something that I couldn't quite put my finger on, but it was noticeable.
Yeah, there's been a long history of, like, what's her name? Barbara Frum, in the 70s was like a main, there's always, so it's, I don't think it's, you'd have to look into the actual numbers.
It's, whatever, it's just the cards fell that way. I was just curious. But anyways, the lady was saying that she was interviewing, I forget the name of the woman she was a writer for The Simpsons and for David Letterman and for I forget what else. But anyway, a comedy writer. She said that someone else said to her that the big thing was like the importance of growing creatively is having your work judged, or being accepting of that, or accepting that will happen, and putting it out there. And I guess that's I hadn't really even gotten the chance to think about it, because there is, I think that there is that some people just think of it as like you make your thing, and some people just do that. Some people just do this shit for a hobby, and like it sits in your living room or something forever. But
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe I suppose if it's not a hobby, if it's something that you like, then it's like, do you how much can you take, or how much do you take in when someone gives you any kind of critique, not just a pat on the back? And I would say 90% of the time it's a pat on the back, because people are nice.
Yeah.
And I'm not to a point where I have enough strangers who don't feel like they don't give a fuck about my feelings.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you gotten any bad reviews? Or
I've gotten what I would call like constructive. I mean, like Blood Ceremony gets bad reviews, but they're usually not very constructive. And then I've gotten some constructive, like about Voller, I've gotten some constructive stuff that's, kind of on the order of like, this is really ambitious and it takes a lot to listen to this music. And I'm like, oh, you know what? Fair.
Yeah.
Like I'll own up to that. And I think we, the numbers ratings that we got in the last album were like a little lower than I felt like I was like, I really worked hard on this. And I felt like it was really good music.
Yeah,
but
the number, yeah, that first, I guess that feeling when you're like, you have that existential, you're like, and this all just amounts to a 3.5 out of 5.
Yeah. And it's like a lot of it was like, these are really interesting tunes, but the album is like 65 minutes long. Each song is like at least 13 minutes, with like 5 parts. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, this, I guess, was a lot for people to take.
Right, and you don't... Now, do you think that it's possible, or that anyone who writes stuff is guilty of... Sometimes I wonder if I'm guilty of hearing things a certain way, and it's not accurate to how others are going to hear it.
Yeah.
Like before you get into your answer, like... When I'm drawing, for example, like I used to love to draw, now I just do it periodically. And I'm just be like, I'll draw what I think is a fucking dog.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, this totally looks like a dog to me, because from the outset, I had that concept in my head. Mm-hmm. But to someone else, and that has happened periodically, they're like, oh, it's a fox. And you're like, it's a cat. Or something like that. And you're like, fucking idiot. No, it's not. So in the same way, I guess, is it possible to have a distorted view of your own record? You're like, this is ideal length, everything is not too accessible.
Yeah,
I guess I'm guilty with that, with accessibility of my own tunes. Like I always think every time that I push something out there, I think that I'm always making it more accessible, and every single time what people say is like, this is like quite involved. And I was like, fuck, man.
Hey,
yo,
is that Laura Ray?
it is.
Hey.
Yeah, anyway.
Oh, totally. Like, yeah, people totally get a distorted view of what... You have a totally distorted view of what's normal. And it's like, it's bound up in like... It's also bound up in like the feeling of performing, Like it's hard to like divorce yourself from like, I really like playing this riff. I really like, how I've set the settings on this and this tone, and I want to play this riff for like 5 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
and yeah, so I think it's very difficult, but I also don't think it matters,
right?
Because someone else will have the opposite. Someone else will. I think, well, maybe, I guess if you're talking about like complexity in music, the hard sweet spot to arrive at that, is like, it's very elusive, and I don't think you can do it consciously, is where the complexity whether it's there or not is in the background. I was listening to Lee Dorian's new band, Septic Tank, which is like a D-beat group. And I was in the mood for it. You know what I meant? And I was like, all right, this is sick. And I put on the new track out. And I was, it's like very, very Discharge sounding. And I was like, this fucking rules. Right. And then I kind of like was listening to it, and then I put the song on again. And then I like started listening to the guitar, and the guitar part is like and I was like, oh, that's like every other D-beat punk riff. And but like the performance in it was like kind of masking that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I had to like really like look and listen to the riff to kind of, or the chord progression.
And then you were like, actually, this song
I was like, this song sucks. And I wrote Lee a letter. I was like, fuck you. I was like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, or like, or like I went and saw Magma. I don't know if you're into them.
Are they that instrumental? Like,
they're like a prog band from France, and they like invented their own language, and it's
well, you've talked about this before.
It's very fucking maximalist, right? And
maximalist,
yeah. It's like everything's fucking thrown in there, and I have never been I've never like really checked them out, but I've always like known that like I like the idea. I listened to like one of their records, I always liked it. I went and saw them, and it like fucking blew me away.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it was just this weird hypnotic, like this ultra rhythmic and like all this chanting and stuff. And then I put on one of their albums this morning, and I was like, this is great, but it's like a little fucking tedious. You know what I mean? And it's this kind of moment where like, I felt like in the live performance I was just taken away, and there were moments where I'd come into the complexity, and there were moments where I just kind of sit back and like be like, wow, this is fucking crazy. And then but like on the records, maybe it's like the complexity is a bit more like right in your face. And that can be annoying.
Right. So you think that the other elements of the experience live provided you with an escape from just what you would normally do with something, where you'd pick it apart and be like, okay, this is doing this thing. And with live performances, how are you with live stuff? Like, how do you approach something so that you can like a lot of times I look at going to shows.
Do you mean playing or listening?
I mean listening.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I go to shows, and if I don't get to sit, and believe it or not, this is a big thing for me, and always has been, not just because like I'm getting older, but it always has been. If I'm seated, I have a way better time absorbing. But when I have to stand, and especially if it's local, and thereby I mean like maybe the quality isn't quite as high in certain cases. Not always. Some people are great, but how do you approach it with an open mind as opposed to being like, before it even starts, pretty much just being like, I am going to predict exactly what's going to happen. This is going to be exactly that. Like, it's just, I feel like I've heard, and this is part of why I'm still wondering, like, well, man, I wonder if I'll get back into heavy music like ever again. Because it's like, I feel like the Super Heavy Sounds kind of like accelerated that. I think I attribute it to just like, I've heard so many tricks in this book. It's like, so, I don't know. How do you approach seeing a live show and trying to enjoy it?
It's difficult at times. Sometimes I'll be watching a live show and I'll be like totally down, even if I'm standing. I also prefer to sit, if I can. And sometimes I'll like I saw a band that I really like recently, and I wanted to see them live. But I had a cold, so sitting down, which I like enjoy, but I wasn't kind of in the right view space. And then like someone came over and started talking to me for like doing that thing where they're like, hey, like, these guys are great, but I'd rather be listening to, fucking cattle decapitation or whatever. And I'm like, so that like that can really take it out of you. But then at the same time, it's like you can be at a show and you can be just fucking talking with your friends the whole time, and like the music's going on in the background, and you'll kind of tune in, tune back out again, and you'll be like, that show fucking ruled, you know. Like,
and I mean, so my first thought, because I've been there before, is like, okay, maybe it was just like the hanging out part that was awesome.
Yeah.
But there is something to be said for like just the same way as when you're listening to tunes at a party and it really sets the mood.
Yeah.
You know, having a band in the background, if it's not deafeningly loud, and you have the opportunity to talk to people, I think that's a win-win. I've been playing, like I play like once a month at this electronic show at Handlebar. I like DJ. And one of the things I really like is that the volume level there's no live drums ever. So you can fucking have a conversation the whole time and it's like, okay. And I kind of like that, like that overall experience. I don't necessarily feel like it's like, okay, then there's the other side of things. There's like the Kevin Quain way.
Exactly.
Where it's like, the artist is a fucking god, you know? I know that that's not what he intended, but like I'm like, you remember that thing with him and then the Edge radio host like about 5 or 6 years ago? I was talking to someone. So I was only really made aware of Kevin Quain like when we were walking around downtown and we happened to stop in at the Cameron House. It was me and Jeremy and Tobin and maybe another person, and it was like exactly what I love. It was like, you know, this like sort of sitting down, but it was also, and it was like this fucking like very heartfelt, like Tom Waits kind of inspired music, and I was shushed out of enjoying it. I was shushed out of like I was shushed we were shushed many times, and all we were saying was like, this is fucking cool, man. That part in that song, shit. Like we were just like literally talking about how much we enjoyed it, and it killed the vibe, and we fucking left.
Yeah.
So the Edge, before you continue, like the Edge guy, some guy at the Edge was like at the fucking Rex or something, you know, and he's talking to, maybe it was the morning show guy, whatever. And then he got shushed at the Kevin Quain show, and he was like, I'll pay the next listener who goes to a Kevin Quain show and like and disrupts it.
That rules.
So of course, you know, you have in your mind this like a stereotypical like boorish fucking dude. It's like, I'm gonna sit here and eat my chicken wings, and I paid for this, so I can do whatever I want. You know, and you just anyway. So who knows what that actually what he was actually like? But anyway, those are the two sides to that.
I think the thing about the Kevin Quain thing, and I talked about this with other people, was that the problem with it was that it was a transformation of that space, the Rex and the Cameron House. So it's like, I get it if you go into Hugh's room, you know what I mean? And there's a show on and you're sitting and everyone's like quiet. But it's like the Cameron House is like a fucking bar on Queen Street.
That's free entry.
Free entry. People are going to walk into it. If he wanted to do that, like, I mean, I think he was great. You know, he's a great performer or whatever. But, like, if you want to do that, he should have gone into the back room. And then you can set the rules in the back room because you have to, like, go in there and it's, like, a specific space. It's like the Cameron House is like a fucking bar where people come and talk and have that kind of thing. And it's like, it doesn't make any sense to like make it like sometimes be this quiet space that's enforced, because I've been there and it's been quiet where people like, you know, where the performance is so captivating that people aren't talking. But I've also been there on like a fucking Saturday night when it's like there's a fucking band rocking and like no one's paying attention because everyone's just hanging out. You know, and it's like that's the idea behind the space.
Yeah.
You know, so
yeah, absolutely, and I thought that's a very good point. It's if the space was understood to be a quiet space, it would be
it'd be totally normal. And like if you went in there and you were talking and people shushed you, it's like, yeah, that's what the rules of this whole thing are.
But if majority of the time it's like a rip roaring good loud time, like why would I be mindful of that?
Yeah, I don't.
On Sunday nights we don't do that.
Yeah, I never got that. I got shushed once by what was his name? Not some fucking guy that got famous later on, like Canadian famous.
At Cameron House.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like, yeah, I can't even remember.
He's on CBC right now.
He's probably getting interviewed by 3 women.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now how do you find, because you go back and forth between, or at least in the past you've gone back and forth with like the like, you know, whatever, the roots folk old time scene and the heavy metal scene, and you're unique in that sense. Like,
yeah. I mean, I honestly don't really care about the folk scene anymore.
Okay.
And I think I've kind of gone, not the opposite of the journey that you've gone on, but like I'm like more into the heavy music scene now.
Metal.
I'm Full Metal Jacket, baby. I mean, I still love the like the old time jazz thing. I love that, and I think that part of me is never gonna go away.
Okay.
But I just found that, like, you know, like so much stuff that you do in music it feels so, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, just, you know, like useless or whatever, or like you're just kind of making gestures and nobody cares. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it felt so much more profound in the folk scene, because so much of it was about who you know, getting on like specific kind of radio, figuring out like how do you know somebody to get onto a folk fest or whatever. And that shit's real in the heavy metal world, right? But like, you know, like the Rucksack Willies, which was the band I was in the Long Haul, we were around for a long time. We had all of our stuff up online. We'd play shows a lot. We would get on these like small radio stations, and like it just felt like nobody gave a shit except for our small circle of friends and like a couple people who were fans, you know? And like when I started Volar, it was like in the first year, you know, with the limited platform that I have, which is that like we have like 2 kind of like, you know, it's like we have members of Blood Ceremony and Do Make Say Think in it, but like, you know, I sold like a tape to a guy in fucking Israel, you know, and this guy was just like, I just checked you out, you know?
Yeah.
And so like there's that element of the heavy music scene that I like, that I've just grown to appreciate so much more. Or like, you know, when I played Asheville, you know, and like nobody has any reason to like come out and see us in Asheville. Like a certain amount of people showed up just to kind of check it out, and then, which happens in the folk world, right? But like this guy drove down from he was like 2 hours away. Oh yeah. And he was like, he's a fan of Blood Ceremony, and he was like, I just came to check you guys out. You know, and I'm like, people don't fucking do that for, you know, Mrs. Something's jug band or whatever.
I mean, yeah, it's a fascinating, alternative. I guess part of me is like always looking at in the past when I played heavy music, I was always like looking at other styles and thinking, well, if I played that shit, this would be fucking cakewalk, man. Like if I played, I thought electronic music was like, because like everyone loves that shit. EDM, fucking Skrillex, everyone loves that shit. But you hear all these stories. Like I heard a guy talking about like going to Toronto like raves in like 1997. He's like, it's a big warehouse, about twice the size of this place. 12 people in. Like, and that's not to say that they were all like that. Obviously, like, I don't know, I've watched
there was some huge raves in the
documentaries
90s.
On like UK, like the UK rave scene, which happened earlier. And yeah, you'd see like, you know, 10,000 young people in a field and shit. So obviously there are exceptions, but just that plays into when you go to a local electronic show, you're like, if you put the whole thing on mute, it's like, oh, this just looks like any local show. There's like 12 people here.
Yeah,
you know? Exactly. It's the grassroots is the grassroots. I don't know as it matters too much what the perceived accessibility of a given thing is.
I just think the culture in the heavy music scene, it's like people understand. And it might be just because like so many people have been in bands or know people that are in bands. And it's like, you understand that like if you go out and you see like a touring band, like I'll do this, like I'll go out and I'll see a touring band and I'll like them, and if I like them, I will buy a shirt because I know how hard it is to like be on the road. And I think a lot of people do that.
Yep.
You know, and it's not saying that's like, I don't want to be like, these guys are the fucking best, they're number one. You know, like there's so many fucking shitheads and like there's so many problems in the heavy music scene.
Of course.
You know, with this fucking, like, you know, you look online with the guy from like Inquisition or whatever. You hear about all that shit.
Is it the white supremacist stuff?
I don't know. He's like a child porn guy, but it's just like people who
Okay.
are like fucking SJWs taking down metal musicians. And you're like, dude, this guy fucking looked at child porn. Like it's nothing to do with
Yeah. That's,
politics.
Yeah.
So there's that shitty side of it. You know what I mean? It's like I've only ever really experienced directly like the really good side of it. But like I said, it's like Blood Ceremony was established when I joined them. So people were like rabid Blood Ceremony fans. They were like mostly cool people, you know, people like really willing to support. So that's like my you know, my experiences
right.
with it.
Mainly I mean, I think it'll be mainly favorable regardless. There will always, it's like what they say with you know, if you don't have haters, if you don't have haters, you ain't popping. There's some rap artist's song, and
One of those rap songs.
yeah, it's one of those rap songs. Like rap, they love to talk about that, and they're always like, you know, just want to give a shout out to all my haters. Y'all get, you know, why I'm up here shining while y'all hating. It's like this weird paranoid thing. And you don't actually think since it's actually just them actually being really wounded inside. But it's also true that, like, you know, you're going to get people, if you're doing anything to a great enough extent, there's, you know, you can't please everyone, and there will always be someone out there being like, you're stupid. And then I have to have a little mini episode where I'm like, what the fuck is this guy doing? What's your deal? Oh, you look like you're like 15. You have like some like stupid little YouTube playlist. What do you do? What do you make? And then I felt better about myself.
We got some coverage on Metal Sucks, which is like,
I
think it's a pretty like,
that's a big one.
it's a big one, but the commenting section on it.
Oh,
is
commenting section is like notoriously
a
bunch
toxic.
of assholes. Yeah.
And like all these people were like they just made fun of our band photos immediately.
Yeah.
And they were like, and then they're just like, heavy metal with violin, huh? Oh, I guess nobody's ever heard of Ne Obliscaris or whatever.
It's like, no, I hadn't.
I was like, actually, I had it, and then I went and checked them out. I'm like, oh yeah, they suck. So like, whatever. And then like people getting in fights about that.
Oh yeah, you get sub comments.
Ooh, I love it.
I mean, they just talk shit. I think that's like classic like YouTube commenting culture at that point, where it's like, who the fuck knows? I don't even know if these people have actual opinions, and they just want to talk shit about you because that's what you do on the internet.
You just talk shit.
It's almost like I watch The Needle Drop a lot. You ever seen that dude?
That guy?
I'm sure you've seen that guy.
Yeah,
He's like you. He's a lot like
me.
you. He's like,
he did one Blood Ceremony record.
did he? Yeah. That's the one that you watched.
Yes.
Everything else is not relevant.
That's the only one I watched. It's not important. I firmly believe all those other episodes don't exist. Actually,
Actually, if we go on his channel right now, he only has one video. It's from 4 years ago. I don't know how people know about it. I guess it must be the Blood Ceremony.
They must love it.
He's his comment sections are actually not. They're not the worst but it's really just a bunch of people talking shit about him in a joking way.
Aren't those weird when you like go into a comment section and it's like actually kind of like cool?
That's rare, man.
You're like, what is happening?
That's rare. Like, yeah, normal. You know what the worst is, man? Is like Globe and Mail, the Post, the Star comment sections.
Ooh.
Because you got fucking retired people.
Yeah.
Retired right-wing people who are like, oh, and they fought their kid, showed them how you can comment on a fucking post. And usually they're fairly well composed, but it's like, you know, it's like, yeah, that shit is fucking brutal.
There's some like actually disgusting stuff that gets posted on those though. Like when like they'll have like an article about like it'll be like young native man gets shot. Then you like read some of it, and you're like, oh
Yeah.
Oh Lord.
That's what I mean. And those people, I mean, it's as if like 15-year-old kids are posting on the National Post, like it's like fucking adults.
Yeah, who
Like-
have like these like firm beliefs and things. Whereas, there's a when you read some of the YouTube stuff, it's like there's more of an air of like nihilism about it.
Yeah, exactly. They'll say fuck you to anybody who says it doesn't even matter if you technically believe in it. It's your job is to take the other person down. Sometimes a lot of times it's in like negative fucked up ways, like that, like what I read about Gamergate was like it was like really just it's there's no way that humans are all that cruel. That's like you're subscribing to some culture where this is your job to like you don't even know why you're doing it. I don't believe. I think that part of that is just that's just what they feel that you do on these forums.
Yeah.
I don't think that any, I don't know, they don't hold any opinion. It's just like a contrarian fuck you opinion. That's it. Because otherwise,
which is like our kind of like, I'm not going to listen to Neurosis taken to some sort of like, gross extreme.
Yeah, it's like ultra. Yeah, it's fucked. But I wonder if it's like, it's almost just like a persona you don. It's like when
I wonder. I mean, it's like who knows, these kind of things is getting a little too theoretical. But it's like there is a human impulse to critique. Like it's like, could this be done better? How can we fix this? Tinkering or whatever you want to call it. And it's like, I think there's a human impulse to like be violent and critique and also to like form groups in opposition to like other groups,
right, so
you know what I mean?
Tribalism.
Yeah, and it's like there's a healthy way to do it, and then there's an unhealthy way to do it. And I think the healthy way to do it is to like form your critiquing thing around like actual processes in your life that could, like, how can I fix this door? How can I fix my gas consumption or whatever? And also to be like, I don't like this record, and like, you're my friend, and I think you're dumb for like, maybe not even saying that, but like, it's, I don't know, we're fucking music nerds. It's fun to have debates about music like that. It's like it's a fun thing to talk about. But then I think that impulse can get directed in these like really sick ways when you're just like shitting on everything.
Yeah, I guess it like maybe a concern that might come to mind for me is for these young commenters who are just trying to get a rise out of people because it gets them off a little bit. If their lives are increasingly devoid of people because so many communications can be done remotely. I can order my Starbucks without talking to anybody. I can order all my shit off Amazon without talking to anybody. I can take an online course and learn how to program computers so I can work from home all the time. Yeah. Would that kind of foster this kind of persona to exist perpetually for a younger generation? Where
atomization is what they call that.
Atomization, that's a good term. Okay.
Yeah.
You mean just where everybody's split off?
Everyone's split off. The like Marxist interpretation of it is like capitalism drives you to become like you're just uniquely your own individual that is a subject to like profit. Like you as an individual are like your relationship is purely with the edifice of profit as opposed to like a relation between, because like you have to commodify everything. So like personal relationships, like the ones like we have with our families, can supply things that are not commodified, like love and like even food and shelter and whatnot. But like, to maximize profit, you have to maximize the relationship between like yourself and the edifice of like profit, whether it's like a corporation or anything like that. So it's like you cut yourself off from all these other things, and then you like your experience is mediated through profit. So
your relationship with your family suffers as a result, or ceases to...
I mean like it's it's I think it's like the idea is that like the sick like kind of like it's like the idea of profit is that like it will grow forever, and the only way it can grow is by like, you know, like fulfilling these like these processes that are like cutting you off from it. It's not like intentional. It's like just kind of the way it goes.
Okay.
And then I think like, yeah, you can like feel alienated from everyone around you when like everything becomes transactional and commodified.
Okay. So you think that's something that could be applied to what we're talking about right now?
Yeah, I think so. You know, it's like you don't get like everything's mediated through like the internet and through whatnot, and it's like you're paying to do these things, right? In a roundabout way, and it's like you satisfy these impulses not in a way that's like conducted through just personal relationships. It's conducted through a relationship you have with Apple and your ISP and, you know, like the brand of YouTube and these kind of things.
Right. But that's at the expense of
just like hanging out with your friends and, you know, like arguing about an album that you like or a movie that you like.
Yeah. Okay. So but then what about your online friends?
Fuck your online friends. I don't
I was just like, I wish I could weigh in more. I started reading the Communist Manifesto again since university, and I stopped. That was when I was at my parents' house.
Yeah.
I have all these university books at home. I started reading it, but I read the foreword first. It was like amended so many times.
Yeah.
Like even after his death, and it's kind of only really the first part that anybody really pays attention to.
Yeah, of course.
You know, it's got all those sick sound bites. Fucking Spectre
those drops.
in Europe. Sick drops. Karl Marx in this bitch.
Spectre.
The Spectre, yeah. It's a great line. But it was just that first part. Anyway, the only thing when I listened to the Joe Rogan Justin Jordan Peterson thing, what he was talking about was the neo-Marxist idea of equality of outcome as being something that's really inconceivable. It's not something that can be achieved.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know. That Peterson guy doesn't really know what he's talking about, I feel like.
Think so?
I mean, like, I've read some, like, just listening to his shit, I'm like, there's nothing here. You know?
Well, he's not. I mean, first of all, I think he's, especially now, it seems that he's turned things into just
culture,
like and just like common sense.
Yeah, it's common sense.
He said himself that he's sort of providing a guiding light for young men who don't know how to act in the world.
Yeah,
his latest book is like, you know, gives you, what is it called? 12 rules for life.
12 rules for life.
And it's just like, get your shit together.
Yeah, well, he's about like hierarchies are good, you know. Right. Marxism is wrong because like everything is like self-directed and like systems can't have that much large of a play in your life, which I think is like fundamentally misguided. And then also like he like talks about postmodernism and he talks about neo-Marxism, but it's like not clear whether he's read any of the things he's talking about, because he says like he's like postmodernist and Marxist, and it's like postmodernists and Marxists are like not friends. Okay, you know what I mean? Because like the Marxist account of things are like very material. It's like very methodical. It's like very like based in kind of like classical logic or whatever, you know. And then a postmodernist would come along and be like, well, there's all sorts of narratives, and we have to like kind of deconstruct this and figure out how to like. And I mean, there aren't even really people called postmodernists. It's just like a tendency, right? Okay. And it's like a tendency that we have towards like deconstruction, irony. That's, you know, that's been prevalent since like the Second World War, of like not placing a primacy on like, you know, these larger narratives and like larger forms, and like the idea that like the modernist idea was like the idea that like through methodical reasoning and whatever we can like make the world better, and like postmodern tendencies say like, is that really true? It's more of just like a kind of like reflection on like notions of narrative and whatnot, and it's like a Marxist would be like, no, this is the narrative of history and this is how it needs to go, and then a postmodernist would say like, no, you know, like we need to look at different different sources and different texts, and so it's kind of like they're not like
they're not the same thing.
They're not the same thing. And then Marxism would take into it certain postmodern accounts, but that were like like Marx like a 20th century Marxist would be like, yeah, of course there's like white privilege and all this kind of stuff, but like a postmodernism is like a tendency to question older assumptions, and so it's like he talks about postmodernists and Marxists like they're the same thing, but they're not.
Okay.
And then like I think it's good to question hierarchies and things like that. And he says it's not good. So I'm just not.
Yeah. Well, I haven't read the same things that you've read, but what he said in this conversation was, the common sense aspect to it, which states that a hierarchy of some kind is inevitable. The idea that in order to have front runners, you have to have people who aren't front runners. But
then he brings all this weird like social Darwinism into it or whatever.
Oh, okay. Does he?
Right? Yeah. He's like there's like people that are like they're just made to succeed, and other people are like not made to succeed. I'll talk about stuff like that. He's also like very inconsistent. He's got like 700 hours of stuff where it just seems like he's talking off the top of his head.
Yeah.
It's like he's like obsessed with cartoons.
Is he?
Yeah,
oh, you mean like the deeper meaning of...
And like Frozen, like he hates Frozen. He like loves the Beauty and the Beast or whatever.
Oh,
I don't know.
okay.
It's just it's a strange it's just very like reactionary, I think is the classic word that you would use.
Right.
He, like looks at the world and he goes like, "Oh no, like people are challenging things, don't challenge things."
Okay. I almost feel now that this is the third recording I've done, and for whatever reason I feel compelled in each of these conversations to steer the conversation in this way. I don't know why it is that these kind of things really, maybe it's just again because I listen to a couple Joe Rogan podcasts or whatever. It's like, do these things really actually matter all that much?
Well, that's the other part of it, right? Is that like it's so cultural, right?
And it's specific to...
Well, it's all cultural grievances, right? Like he's like,
yeah,
and these kind of things, like straighten yourself out, recognize hierarchies, all these like cultural grievances, but like that's in direct opposition to the idea that like, what really guides us in life is like the flow of like wealth and capital, and where like how we're able to like live these lives and history behind us, right? And he's saying like, don't question that. Everything that you think of is cultural, right?
Okay.
And it's like that's and also taking like these kind of like postmodern and Marxist things of it and putting it strictly in a cultural context, whereas like taking the eye away from like the modes of power that are like actually like at the heart of...
And you're saying this is all directly related to money and material?
I think a lot of things are. And it's like, you're asking like, how much does it really matter? And it's like the cultural question is like, how much does it really matter? Mm-hmm. And he's a cultural warrior, and you can have this culture fight forever. But at the same time, it's like, people are still like, there's all this horrible shit going on.
Right.
Like Bangladeshi garment workers are dying, and like, the way our modes of consumption are so like, disposable, and like, no, like people aren't questioning that. But then it's like, then the fight gets like redirected towards like, people are like, oh yeah, like the people on like the left are like, check it out, here's this new Black Panther movie with like a strong black character in it. What do you think of that? Conservatives are like, oh, there's too much emphasis on representation and blah blah blah. We're not making good movies, and I feel like it's all just like a smoke show.
That's what my next question was is it a sideshow, and is it calculated to, because it's far more salient than is, and I'm not a Marxist, I'm not an anything.
Yeah.
But you know, they always say, like in journalism, they say follow the money.
Yeah, well, I think it's, I mean, I'm not a big proponent of these ideas that these things are all calculated and, you know, it's like a plot.
No, I would never. If anything I said sounded like it was a conspiracy, I'm not suggesting that.
No, but it's like, I think it's kind of scary and difficult to think about the world on those terms. And a lot of people, it's like too complex. There's a guy named, as a filmmaker whose name Adam Curtis, who made this really good movie. I think you'd like it, actually. It's called Hypernormalization.
I watched it. I saw it.
Yeah, and it's like his whole thing is like things are just too complex, and it's like when you like try to like meet this like hypercapitalism head on, it's like, oh fuck, like every single thing in my life is like bound into this, and it's like objectively, even if just from an environmental perspective, it's bad. You know, we shouldn't be producing 10 million fidget spinners out of plastic, or you know, a billion, or however many fucking those things were made. We shouldn't be producing those so that there's this like fad that lasts for like 3 months, and then people make millions of dollars, and then you just throw them into the forest, or, you know, and throw them into the fucking ocean, right? Like that's like, I feel like that's just unequivocally, we can all kind of agree and be like, yes, you know, but it's like the modes of the modes and like the directions that like put those forces into play are so complex and so entangled in our lives that it just becomes like this, you know what I mean? Like, fuck. And then you just kind of like, well, what can I deal with? Oh, there's, like, there's not enough women, there's not enough strong female people in Hollywood. Yeah. And you can cause a stink about that and like, you know, get it done. You can get a movie, the female Ghostbusters movie, you can get that made, right? And I don't think that's bad at all. Of course. It's good. It's great, you know, like whatever. Like, more people should have jobs in art, and more, you know, people should see themselves in things. But, you know, it's, at the end of the day, it's like, you know, great, there's female Ghostbusters, but like, does that help, you know, women who are working in Chinese factories assembling iPhones?
Right. Know? I mean, that's to completely run the risk of talking out of my own place, like listening to CBC and hearing them talk about the latest developments of the Me Too movement, and how do we see that in Hollywood. I get a little bit sick of hearing Hollywood as if it's isn't that like the you know, it's like the, what percentage of the workforce of the population is Hollywood?
It's like fucking Hollywood. What percentage of the workforce is Hollywood, and what, you know, and what kind of wage earners are those?
Those are the top fucking wage earners. Top wage earners,
and it's like, I mean, it's dumb to talk about it, but there's all these like, I follow so many of these like fucking Marxist pages or whatever, but it's like there's these memes, and it'll be like, you know, it'll be like conservatives, and it'll be like, the top 10 richest people own half the wealth in the world, or whatever. And then it'll be like liberals, and it'll be like, half of them should be women. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the idea. Now, do you think just identity politics is it just because we can put a face and a person in a story and it's more relatable than is something like the flow of material and capital? And
I think it deals with, again, this like atomization, this idea of like becoming an individual that's in relationship to all the structures in your life, and you want like your individuality kind of like acknowledged and asserted, right? And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and I don't think that whenever I critique these things, it's like, I don't think it is wrong to push for more representation or more respect for people of any minority. It's like not wrong, it's a good thing, but it's like how you do it, and it's like, it's not enough to just have it be in movies. Right. It's not, you know what I mean? It's,
I guess, because sometimes I try and justify, after I ask that question, to say that it's a bit of a beacon, I suppose, right? Like Hollywood, what decisions that are made, and because so celebrities are so important to so many people's lives.
Yeah, but it's not going to get like more women on like a construction crew, is it?
I mean, I doubt it. I don't know. It can't hurt.
It can't hurt. It can't hurt. That's the other thing, right? It can't hurt. So I wouldn't. I'm not saying like stop doing it.
No, I mean, I think that you'd have something wrong with you if you were like, I think it's wrong. Like, what would it be wrong?
Wrong.
I just I feel like the ability to empathize with that is with that element, with the identity politics element. It's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to have emotional response to that. Mm-hmm. It's a lot easier even with whatever your viewpoints are on income distribution and wealth. It's a lot better if you can put a face to who's evil, who's hoarding the money. But then the thing is, if you actually have a conversation with someone who's like in the top 0.1%, they're probably not going to be, snidely whiplash.
No, they're not like evil people.
The conversation is really like, there's that clip of Richard Pryor talking to some guy about like, and he's like, I think once if everyone was talking more like about race questions, like we'd realize how much more we had in common. Now he was talking about it with regard to like poor versus rich people.
Yeah.
But I think even, I don't know, talk to the fucking rich people. I think that's like what I've said this before about like going down to the States, for example. Like if you don't, I find that as a Canadian, everyone should like go visit the States periodically.
Oh yeah.
So that you don't get back into this habit of being smug about Americans, which Canadians do. It's just
100%.
It's just guaranteed to happen when you got Little Junior up here next to like the star of the show.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna happen. And I would rather live in Canada than anywhere else in the world. Mm-hmm. But it's important. I think that it can break down this unnecessary kind of viewpoint. It's not really harming anyone, but it's the same tribal kind of viewpoint. But so communication, but I guess it's like the bigger question is like what I'm saying sort of equates to like hippies in the 60s saying everybody should just come together. We should all need to come together. And even now with, like various, like Black Lives Matters, just things like that, I feel like people talk about, we just the nation needs to come together. It runs the risk of not really ringing true. It's like, as human beings, I think there's an evolutionary fact that we want to create. We're intended to create groups where some are excluded. Is it possible to go beyond that? Because I really do think like if all the perceived like the social justice warriors that make me fucking mad because they just won't fucking shut up about how everything is unequal, but it's only with regard to how people look. And then on the other side, you've got right-wing people who have this like bizarre like victimized way of talking and finger pointing and looking at the other side as if it's like they've lost their minds. If I were to converse with either of them, and once we got over like whatever posturing they had, and we talked, I really feel that it would be rare for me to reach an impasse with any individual. But it's like, is that something that's feasible, that can be that can be worked on a broader scale? I don't know if I were to put one word on what can solve like whatever issues, it's like communication works for your marriage.
Yeah.
But like, okay, how do you do it in a broader sense? I
have no idea.
Oh fuck, man.
Sorry, I was gonna solve that for you.
That's just like, again, it's like, like sometimes, well, often you're explaining your view and you realize how often like your things that back you up, whatever your argument is, are anecdotes, and none of them It's like
Yeah.
based on the 3 people I've talked to.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know, and that's majority of my experience is that. So all like I think that when I discuss these kind of things, part of me is it's like this weird like melding of seeing my experience, my reaction to something like an action, like going and meeting with someone who holds like views that I might not agree with, but having a conversation where I realize like this person's all right, you know, is tied up in the idea of some kind of universality in human experience where everyone could feel the same way as I do and call that like a we are all one kind of. So I hope that there's an element of truth to that instead of just I don't know. Otherwise you gotta like, I don't know. I'm just one versus millions, you know?
I think it comes down to like knowing what is important and like putting culture in the right place, you know?
I really do right now. I have it in my head that culture is this cultural sideshow, and it's like just more entertaining than what the alternative is, or what the more important aspect is.
Exactly. So I think it's like you need to put culture in the place, because it's like, you know, I think there's 2 different ways you can think about it. Is that like culture influences life, or that life influences culture, and I believe that like it's the second way. It's like life produces culture. Not culture is not produced by life. And so like you need to change the way you're living first.
Yeah, I mean I don't know, like I read a book that was written after No Logo, which was like, you know, a big deal, but I feel like every person around my age has that book on their bookshelf, including me. I read another book. It was kind of a little bit like a rebuttal called The Rebel Cell, and they were talking about just finding fault in the idea that like at a certain point that culture, people, you know, of course this goes back to like some French theoreticians, you know, cultural theoreticians, like we will punch holes in society through art, through culture. And I think that what the people who wrote this book were saying was it didn't work. like Naomi Klein in No Logo was talking about culture jamming, like, you know, instead of Fruit Loops, it's like Death Loops. Like, you know, and they graffitied up the poster, and it was
pretty, you know, it's like Adbusters stuff. It's
yes,
like pretty, it's
Adbusters was featured prominently.
Naive, right? I feel like.
I mean, I just again anecdotally doesn't fucking seem to have changed all that much.
Yeah,
looks cool.
It's hard, right? Like it's like, you know, you're so stuck inside the system. It's like if you want to eat, I need to go to the grocery store and buy some shit, you know? And it's like, you're stuck there. Unless I fucking go off grid and, you know, build a shack out in the woods and start growing my own food, or whatever, or join some sort of commune. Right. So it's like, the way to disentangle yourself from these things can't just be, like stenciling stuff on and cause it's like, people know how horrible, like it's like the meat eating question, right? It's like most people know how bad it is, and I still eat meat. You know, I know how bad it is, and I still eat meat. And it's like, how do you disentangle yourself from? I don't know.
Well, I think the meat eating thing, like that came to mind. Like, did you read that Subway poster?
Posters, yeah.
Like the one about, it's like some quote, it's like the singular most important step a person can take to improve the environment is to stop eating meat. And it's like, oh, this is going to be kind of hard for me to convince myself out of this one.
And it's like, I mean, stop buying things made out of plastic and stop eating meat would be like the 2 big things, or like, I guess stop driving as well would be like the 3 biggest things that you could do. But like everything's made out of plastic. You have to drive to get anywhere. And meat's delicious
pretty much everywhere. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that it's feasible that I could change my diet. It's like currently the thing that's stopping me is the ease of doing things the way I do things with regard to food. and also being like, again, another anecdote, being like, well, people who are vegan, like they all spend all day in the kitchen making shit. I don't have time for that. And then I'm just like, that's good enough explanation for me.
There we go.
Just keep going.
Yeah.
So I think that's feasible. The driving thing, I can't see that happening for me. And plastic, you know, I don't use straws anymore because of some shit I heard about that. I was like, man, this was a stupid idea. Whoever came up with that shit.
It is a really shitty idea.
What a stupid idea.
This one-use disposable straws.
Yeah. It was remarkable. Like
what I'm always fascinated by though is like, it's like, and this is totally like, it's not off topic, but off topic is like I knew people who like, I have these metal straws.
Yeah,
and I'm like, why do you need you don't need a straw.
Yeah. I know. What is it about sucking that people like so much?
Yeah, what is it about it? It's like, you don't need, like, I mean, sure, yeah, go have a metal straw or whatever, but it's like I never want to be like,
yeah,
like,
I don't get it. I really don't. I mean, okay, wait, what about milkshakes?
Oh, damn.
Yeah, but most people don't even use it. I mean, they'll use it for milkshakes, but how many people drink fucking milkshakes,
Yeah,
man?
you need spoons.
I've seen like 3 people drink milkshakes ever. So I mean, what does that tell you? What does that tell you? Like, but yeah, you'll see it with people with Coke. You know, maybe that's the shit that we really need to be focusing on. Is like, why are you using a straw
in a can of
Coke?
Yeah,
like it's the experience is the same, and I think that's really what we can take away from this podcast.
Is stop using straws.
Stop using straws for like non-straw necessary applications. Yeah. The pop is not thick. You don't need. No. Yeah, you don't need it.
I'm kind of in support of those like straws that are also kind of spoons, like for a Frosty.
It's called a stroon.
A spraw.
Straw. It's a straw spoon. What is it like? The spoons here and straw and you.
Yeah, it's like the end of it's like a little cutout, and you can kind of like. You know,
man, I wonder if there's like one guy that made that and he's just like super rich off that shit.
You never know.
Probably. It's still it's like only Dairy Queen.
I knew somebody growing up whose grandfather invented the cardboard folding thing that goes in between wine bottles in a wine box.
Okay, I don't even know as I can picture that.
I don't know if you ever like you move.
Oh, you mean like the 6, like the
yeah.
6-panel thing or not panel? Anyway, yeah, I know the thing.
Yeah, so the guy his grandfather invented that, and like I remember I was like, they had this like really nice house,
right?
And I kind of asked my friend one day, and I was like, you know, the friend of this friend, I was like, what does this mom do for a living? He's like, she's just kind of an activist. She doesn't work. She doesn't need to. I was like, that's insane.
Like another generation down, like not even like having to work off of that shit.
Yeah,
like,
that's insane.
Man, before then though, like people like the LCBO trying to like move these 6-packs of wine. They're like, be careful. Every other box is just broken.
Every wine bottle was shipped in a box the same size, but it was just filled with packing stuff.
There's actually jobs for people where all they did was pack wine boxes, and like a bunch of newspaper and shit. I'm a wine box packer. A lot of these people, I played a wedding. No, sorry, it wasn't a wedding. It was just like a house party up. I don't know where it was, somewhere up north, a couple hours, and it was like the summer home of this rich dude. And I just asked someone like what he did, and they're like, well, he has a business that, you know, he's like a billionaire, maybe not a billionaire, but like many like he had his yacht on prominent display, $8 million, no, it's like $4 or $5 million yacht.
Jeez.
He had they had their regular garage, then they had their ATV garage.
Okay,
they had like 6 ATVs, and then like 4 ski-doos in the ski-doo garage.
Whoa.
Had a fucking sauna in the house, and this is like your fucking summers or cottage.
Yeah, okay.
And so he was like, and then you ask someone what he did, and they're like, yeah, he has this company where they that like cleans auto parts manufacturing plants.
Okay.
Like this fucking like maybe they have specific machinery they use.
Yeah.
But it's
or
like
like they have like contracts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But it's like this sector of the world or this of life that you don't even think anyone does. And then you're like, somehow you fucking got into this thing. Yeah. It's too bad that like I don't love money enough for that to matter. You know, I don't need to. Otherwise, I would have taken up my boss's suggestion years ago. Where it's like, you know, it's like you should get into insulation. It's a solid one.
Yeah, that's always funny when you like you meet people who you're like you just love money.
Yeah,
like you could be doing any business and it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing that some people that is literally it, and you can kind of just, and it's like all these like, you know, existential battles that go on while I'm like doing whatever the fuck I'm doing day to day. It's like just don't even really happen. You kind of go to your job. Do you like it? It doesn't matter. Like
you're making the money.
And whereas I'm constantly just being like, you know, like is this the right thing to do right now? Is this right? Yeah. So anyway, that's a good 2 hours. We'll cap it at that.
All right, cool. Wow, 2 hours. I gotta piss.
Yeah, no, I do too.
That concludes our conversation. Be sure to subscribe once again via YouTube, SoundCloud. Oh, wait, not SoundCloud. I don't have it up there anymore. So YouTube, Google Play, and iTunes. And the next episode will be up on June the 25th. And that will feature, well, you know what? I'll let it be surprised. So once again, you've tuned into Jack Chat's podcast. This has been Jack Moves. You have a good one.